7 students vanished. No one saw them leave. No one heard a sound. But 10 years later, a farmer digging near the woods found a sealed tin box. Inside was a torn, rain-stained note. "We were not alone. They come in threes. Don't follow the lights." There were no names, no fingerprints, just a crude drawing of 7 empty circles, each crossed out, and beneath them, 3 faceless figures staring. Welcome to Uncommon Stories. If this story stays with you, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from and when the truth found you. Now let's begin. They were supposed to be home by Sunday. It was March 17th, 2013. 14 students from Weatherby High piled into a yellow bus and headed out for their annual outdoor education trip, a weekend retreat into the dense Oregon forest near a place locals call Black Hollow. The kids packed extra socks, trail mix, disposable cameras. Some brought guitars. Some brought teddy bears. By 9:15 a.m., the bus rolled out of town. By 9:15 the next morning, half of them were gone. 7 students. No signs of struggle. No tracks. No sound. Just their sleeping bags, zipped up, still warm. Their names were Eli Ross, Mira Lanning, Jordan Byers, Tess Martin, Reed McCarthy, Hannah Wiles, and Bo Denner. 16 years old. Honor students. Band kids. Soccer stars. One had asthma. One needed insulin. 2 wore glasses. None of them were the kind of kids who vanished quietly. But that's exactly what they did. Camp Wild Pines was nestled 12 miles off the main road, surrounded by dense trees and rocky hills. It had no cell service, no Wi-Fi, and just one dusty ranger station a mile east. It was a tradition for Weatherby High's juniors to camp there each spring, learn survival skills, sleep under the stars. That night, according to the chaperones, everything was normal. Dinner at 7, campfire stories at 8, lights out by 10:30. And by 10:45, every tent was zipped, every head accounted for. But when Mr. Hale, one of the 2 teachers, stepped out at sunrise to start coffee, he noticed something strange. One tent was completely still, unzipped, untouched, silent. Inside, for sleeping bags, all empty. He called out. No answer. He checked the other tents. 3 more were empty. Panic set in fast. The second chaperone ran toward the trailhead to check for footprints. There were none, just dew-covered moss and trees that stood too still. Within hours, the woods were swarmed with police dogs and search and rescue teams. They searched until dusk, then again the next day, then for the next 6 weeks. Helicopters scanned from above. Dive teams dragged a nearby lake. Nothing. No blood. No clothes. No torn fabric or footprints. As if the 7 had been plucked out of existence without a trace. The town went quiet. At first, news vans flooded the school. Microphones in faces. Parents crying on live TV. Then the theories started. A group runaway? Unlikely. One left their inhaler. Another her phone. One didn't have their shoes on. A predator? No tire tracks. No witnesses. No sounds. Nothing on the ranger's camera. And then the rumors about the forest, about Black Hollow. Older locals remembered stories. Not campfire tales. Not ghost stories. They remembered warnings. That the woods weren't just thick, they were wrong. One ranger, retired in the 1980s, had written a note in an old logbook. Do not patrol South Loop past twilight. Heard the humming again. No bugs. No wind. Just them. The note was ignored. Until now. But after 3 months, the search was called off. The parents, most of them, began to grieve. But one didn't. Angela Martin, mother of Tess, refused to believe her daughter was dead. She printed missing posters every year. She walked the forest on every anniversary. She mapped satellite imagery, kept journals of animal migration, and monitored wind patterns. She even started her own website, stilloutthere.net. And in bold red letters, the first line read, "They didn't leave. We just haven't looked deep enough." 10 years passed. The town tried to move on. The school remodeled. The trip was canceled permanently. A bench was installed outside the gym with the names of the 7 carved into it, but no one used it because it still felt like they weren't gone, just waiting. Then, on October 4th, 2023, something changed. A farmer named Tommy Elkins was clearing brush along the tree line behind his property. His dog, a black mutt named Ranger, dug up something metallic. Tommy leaned down, brushed the dirt away, and pulled free a small rusted box. Curious, he brought it inside, pried it open, and found a piece of cloth tied tightly around folded paper. It was a school bandana Weatherby High's colors, stained and faded. Inside, a handwritten note. We were not alone. They come in threes. They don't speak, but they hum. Don't follow the lights. We made a mistake. The words were scratched in dark ink, the kind you only get from cheap classroom pens. And beneath them, 3 tall, stick-like figures, drawn with arms too long and heads too round. And beside them, 7 small circles, each with an X drawn through it. Police were called. The box was taken into evidence. Handwriting analysts estimated it was written by a teenager, likely within a year of the disappearance. A forensic geologist confirmed the soil around the box hadn't been disturbed since at least 2014. Angela Martin was called in. She stared at the drawing, and then whispered, "That's her writing." Tess always drew faces like that. It was her way of calming down. When asked if she believed it was real, Angela only said, "They didn't vanish. They were trying to warn us, and we didn't listen." The next day, police returned to the area with a forensic crew, and what they uncovered, just 800 yards beyond where the box had been buried, would lead them to a collapsed structure, a missing ranger log, and something buried under the floorboards that no one was ever meant to find. The forest was quiet when they returned. A special forensics team arrived at the site where the tin box had been buried, led by Lieutenant Sarah Haskins, one of the original officers on the 2013 case. 10 years older now, 10 years quieter. She brought new tools this time: drones, thermal scanners, and ground-penetrating radar. They expected empty woods. Instead, they found a structure, not a cabin, not a bunker, a ruin, long since caved in, walls gone, roof collapsed under moss and time. Just a rusted frame of something that looked like a hunting shack. But underneath it, they found a door. It was buried beneath 14 inches of dirt and rotted wood. A cellar trapdoor, sealed with iron latches and bolts now crusted over. The kind built to stay shut for a very long time. They forced it open. Inside was a room no larger than a shed. Wooden walls, a cot, a shelf, a lantern, all frozen in time. But in the far left corner, buried in the wall, was a panel of scratched wood, letters carved with what looked like a key or a nail. They read, "We're sorry. We shouldn't have gone past the fence." They watched us sleep. Below it, 7 names, carved in uneven rows. Eli, Mira, Jordan, Tess, Reed, Hannah, Bo. The air inside the shack was still, stale, but undisturbed, as if no one had entered in a decade. And next to the cot, barely held together by decay, was a backpack, Weatherby High colors. Inside were wrappers, a half-burned journal, a Polaroid photo, faded but visible, showing the 7 kids, arms around each other, smiling near a tree with strange marks behind it, and at the bottom of the bag, a page from a logbook, a ranger's field journal, with the name W. Tuller scribbled in the top right corner. W. Tuller had worked the forest from 2009 to 2015. Quiet man, no family. He retired after the disappearance and moved to Montana. Police tracked him down and asked if he remembered anything unusual. He said yes. And then he said something stranger. They weren't supposed to camp that close to the perimeter. No one knew what he meant. Perimeter of what? Back in the 1980s, Black Hollow Forest had been part of a research grant from the Department of Energy, one that was quietly terminated in 1988 after geological instability was reported. Old maps from that era showed a zone, Section 9G, marked with diagonal stripes and labeled, "Restricted, do not enter." But that area had long been forgotten, folded into public land, and never officially acknowledged. Tuller claimed he was once told never to patrol that sector after dark. He didn't know why. No one ever explained. But he said that in his years at the station, 3 things always happened near the old Section 9G. Animals avoided it. Even deer wouldn't cross the old fence posts. Radios cut out. Walkie-talkies crackled, died, or hummed. And hikers who entered it never returned on time. Sometimes hours late. Sometimes days. Sometimes not at all. The journal from the backpack gave more clues. Each entry was dated, the handwriting shaky. The ink faded in places, like it had been soaked and dried. March 17th, 2013. We left the main trail. We weren't supposed to, but both thought he saw lights through the trees. We passed a broken fence. Thought it was nothing. Then we saw the tree with the scratches. Looked like letters. Reed said they were warnings. March 18th. We're staying in the shack tonight. Myra's leg is bleeding. No signal. It's too quiet. We keep hearing humming. Not from a person. From the trees. March 19th. Something walked around the shack last night. No footsteps. Just crunching leaves. Then the humming started again. Louder. Bo is shaking. We tried to block the door. March 20th. Jordan said we should leave. Follow the lights back. Tess screamed when he stepped outside. She said he wasn't alone. That was the last entry. The page after it had been torn out and burned. The Polaroid found in the bag was analyzed by photo specialists. Behind the group, barely visible, were trees. But one, just one, seemed to lean unnaturally, as if it had arms. No one said it out loud, but everyone who saw it felt it. Angela Martin visited the site the next day. She knelt beside the rusted door and placed her hand on the ground. She didn't cry. She only whispered, "You tried to come back. I'm sorry we didn't listen." The school held a vigil the next week. 7 candles, 7 chairs, and 1 empty journal passed from parent to parent. A book of goodbyes. But not everyone believed it was over. A park ranger, Lena Graves, who joined the team in 2018, reviewed the new map overlays from drone footage. She noticed something strange near the shack site, roughly 200 yards northeast. The thermal drones had detected a dip in soil density. She walked the trail, marked the spot, and found a stone ring buried in moss, 11 feet wide, perfectly circular, like something had once landed there, or waited. Local legends called it a listening circle. Stories went back to the 1940s. One newspaper article from 1946 spoke of 2 boys who disappeared on a hunting trip. They were found 3 days later, shoes missing, faces bruised, and both unable to speak. The only thing they wrote, over and over again, in the hospital pad they were given was, "Don't follow the lights." Back in the lab, investigators examined the ink on the original note found in the tin box. Preliminary tests showed something unexpected. Traces of a compound not commercially available, a carbon-based pigment, typically used in military-grade stealth markers. No one knew how a 16-year-old would have gotten access to something like that, unless they weren't the ones who wrote it, or someone wanted it preserved long after they were gone. The official cause of death for the 7 students remains unknown. No bodies were recovered. No further notes were found. But the shack is now sealed off, and Section 9G has been redesignated as a no-entry zone, effective immediately. The remaining families held a private memorial. They left photos, paper cranes, and tiny flashlights with dead batteries at the side of the shack. And as Angela Martin walked away, she said one final line. They vanished. They didn't know anyone was watching them. That's what the final page of the journal suggested. The one burned. The one found only in pieces. Investigators pieced together 3 lines under ultraviolet light, barely visible, but unmistakable. We made a mistake. We shouldn't have followed the lights. They were already inside. The phrase inside wasn't clear. Inside the woods? Inside the camp? Or inside the 7 themselves? A forensic linguist was brought in to examine the journal entries, and the note in the tin box. Their conclusion was simple and terrifying. The earlier entries were written under duress, but with clarity. The final message? It wasn't written by someone thinking clearly. It was written by someone who was already unraveling. Meanwhile, thermal scans around the shack site revealed more than just soil anomalies. Roughly 60 feet from the back wall, underground imaging picked up voids, hollow pockets in the earth, perfectly shaped, aligned in a pattern. 3 of them, 6 feet long, 2 feet wide, the exact dimensions of beds. But when excavation began, those voids weren't empty. They were filled with ash. No bones, no tools, no artifacts, just burned dirt, as if something had erased whatever was once buried there. Angela Martin visited the site again, this time carrying her daughter Tessa's sketchbook. She flipped through it slowly, page by page, and paused at a drawing made just 3 weeks before the trip. It showed 7 kids standing in the woods, laughing. Behind them, tall shapes, just outlines, no faces. At the bottom of the page, in Tessa's own handwriting, "I don't think we're alone, but maybe they just want to be understood." The discovery of the ash beds reopened the case fully. For the first time, the FBI was called in, not because of the disappearances themselves, but because of the strange pigment found in the ink, the irregularities in the soil, and the thermal patterns that no one could explain. They brought in experts. One of them, Dr. M. Renford, a retired biologist who experienced in deep environment anomalies, visited the site personally, and after walking the grounds, reviewing the journal, and seeing the Polaroid, she said only this: "This isn't just a disappearance. This is a site of interaction." When asked what that meant, she didn't answer. She just left. That's when the second box was found. It was uncovered by accident, not by drones or dogs, but by a 14-year-old boy walking the edge of the woods with his older brother. They weren't near the original site. They were over a mile away, near the old ranger station. And sticking out from a tree trunk, almost fused into it, was metal. They dug around it with sticks until they uncovered the corner of a weathered, red box. This one wasn't rusted. It was clean, polished, like someone had placed it there much more recently. Inside, another note, but this one was typed. It read, "They're not gone. They're just somewhere else. A place with no clocks, no sun, and no up or down. We shouldn't have answered the sound. It wasn't for us. It was them calling each other. We were in the way." At the bottom of the paper, no name, but scribbled in pencil, in a different hand, were the words, "Tell our parents we're sorry." The typed font was traced back to a specific kind of portable typewriter, discontinued in 1992. Only 4 units had ever been registered in Oregon. One of them belonged to Robert Hale, the teacher who chaperoned the original trip, the same man who swore he had done a full tent check that night, the same man who passed a polygraph, the same man who'd moved to Maine in 2015 and had never spoken publicly about the case again. When contacted, he denied ever owning that typewriter. But in his garage, boxed away in a plastic bin, was a matching ribbon. Same wear, same brand. He refused to speak after that. He lawyered up, and within 2 weeks, he disappeared. His car was found at the edge of Black Hollow. Door open, headlights off, keys in the ignition, but no one inside, just a folder on the passenger seat, with a single Polaroid, 7 kids, a fire behind them, but no smiles this time, only their eyes staring at something just off camera, and in the corner of the photo, a shadow, not tall, not shaped like a person, but watching. One officer, young, fresh out of training, asked if maybe the students had stumbled into a military operation, but the feds shook their heads. Too quiet, too clean, too old. They said it wasn't man-made, and if it was, then it was no longer under anyone's control. A woman named Jolene Wiles, older sister of one of the missing girls, Hannah, came forward after seeing the news reports. She had something strange, something no one believed at first, a voicemail, dated 3 days after the disappearance. She hadn't noticed it back then. It had gone straight to an old landline. The message was short, broken, cracked with static. But one thing was clear. It was Hannah's voice. And she was whispering. It's dark here, but not black. There's light, but it moves. I think we're beneath something. It's not a cave. It's something else. Then the line cut off. Audio specialists examined the tape. The frequency of the background hum didn't match anything typical. Not engine noise, not electrical static. It had rhythm, a pattern, 3 tones. One low, one high, one so quiet it barely registered on equipment. Almost like a voice, but not a human one. The last known piece of evidence came exactly 10 years, and one day after the students vanished. It was a letter, postmarked from an unknown sender in upstate Washington. No return address. Inside was a photo, aged, blurred, water-damaged. But on the back, in familiar handwriting. We went too far. But they let us see. One day, maybe you will too, but don't look for us. Angela Martin held the letter in her hands. She ran her fingers over the indent where someone had pressed hard into the paper and said, "That's Tess. I'd know her writing anywhere." To this day, no bodies have been found, no charges filed, no arrests made. The forest remains open. But Section 9G is now watched by federal surveyors. No signs, no fences, just presence. And if you walk far enough past a fallen tree, through the place where no birds sing, you might find a circle of stones, perfectly placed, waiting. The stones were clean, no moss, no leaves, no insects crawling between them, just 7 white rocks, arranged in a perfect circle, each one smooth, untouched by weather. In the middle, a single feather, black, bent at the tip, still standing upright. As it placed her gently, not dropped, Ranger Lena Graves was the first to step into the circle. Her boots sank half an inch deeper than expected. She bent down, brushed back the surface layer of dirt, and found wood, boards, old, dry, covered in tiny carvings. Not in English, not in any language she knew, just shapes, repeating, spiraling, spacing themselves in ways that didn't feel random. The forestry team cordoned off the area immediately, and beneath the wood, they found a shaft. It dropped 12 feet straight down, lined with planks, clearly man-made, but not recent. At the bottom, a chamber, 8 feet wide, circular walls. No light, no ladder. They sent in a drone, and that's when the signal cut out. No warning, no static, just nothing. A second drone was lowered by cable. This time, they kept the line hardwired. The feed came through grainy black and white infrared, but enough to see. The floor was made of stone, cracked in several places. At the center of the room, a chair, wooden, carved, with ropes tied to the arms. And in the corner, a box, same dimensions as the 2 previous ones found, but this one was open. Inside, feathers, dozens of them, small, black, pressed flat like they'd been soaked and dried, and a piece of paper caught beneath the lip of the lid, half burned, but still showing words. This is the 3rd day. Reed says we should take turns sleeping, but the hum keeps changing. It moves now, around the room. I think it knows our names. That's all it said, but the signature at the bottom was intact. Mira Lanning, 16 years old, disappeared without a trace. Now, 10 years later, her name surfaced again, beneath the forest floor. The team pulled the page and preserved it. The ink was smudged, but chemically consistent with the school notebooks issued at Weatherby in 2013. When Angela Martin saw the handwriting, she nodded slowly. That's Mira. She always looped her R's like that. She and Tess used to sit on the porch and write ghost stories. I think maybe one of them came true. The local news ran the story under the headline, "Buried Chamber Discovered in Vanishing Case. Are these the missing students' final messages?" But federal authorities stepped in hours later. The site was sealed, the report retracted, and by sunrise the next day, the entrance to the chamber had been filled with concrete. Official reason, soil collapse risk. Unofficially, no one would speak on record, not even graves. But something strange happened after the chamber was closed. The birds came back, not all at once, but slowly. And then the bugs, the wind, the rustle of branches. The forest sounded alive again. For the first time in years, the silence had cracked, but it didn't feel like peace. It felt like something had simply moved. Then came the letter. This time, addressed to the school, typed on old paper. No return address. Inside, just a single line. We did what you couldn't. We held them off. For now. No one knew who wrote it, but was dated March 17th, 2023. Exactly 10 years since the disappearance. A former student, Charlie Monroe, who'd been on the trip but survived, came forward after seeing the reports. He'd never spoken publicly, but in a recorded interview, he admitted something he kept buried for a decade. We saw something. That night, something in the trees. It didn't move right. It bent too far. It hummed, but like a question, like it was asking if we knew we weren't supposed to be there. He'd told the police nothing back then, said he was asleep, that he didn't remember. Now he confessed. We dared each other to cross the old fence. Tess said it was a bad idea. She begged us not to, but Bo, he went first, and then the others followed. I stayed behind. When asked why, he said, because I saw the third one, the tall one, the one that didn't blink. That same night, an anonymous tip was called into the sheriff's office. A voice, low, raspy male, gave coordinates. No name, no explanation. Just one phrase before hanging up. They're not buried. They're waiting. The team followed the coordinates. They led to the old Ranger's tower, long since collapsed, reclaimed by moss. Inside the base, behind a false panel on the wall, they found a book, wrapped in plastic, kept dry, hidden, a ranger's log, not one that was ever turned in, pages filled with entries like, lights again near 9G perimeter, heard singing, not human, no wind, no moon, just hum. And then on March 18th, 2013, the night of the disappearance, 7 of them crossed, marked at the gate. Can't stop it now. That page was signed. W. Tuller, the same ranger who'd retired, the same one who said nothing when first questioned. He was re-interviewed. When asked why he never handed in that log, he stared blankly and said, because they told me I didn't have to. They already knew. The sheriff asked, who knew? Tuller replied, and then refused to speak again. He was later found wandering near the tree line, dazed, barefoot, with his hands over his ears. He's now under medical observation. He hasn't spoken since, but he keeps writing one word over and over again. Echo. Back at the Martin home, Angela found something she hadn't seen in years. An old voicemail from Tess, buried in her phone archives. She played it. Static. Crackling. Then Tess's voice. Faint. Breathless. Don't be mad. We thought it was just a game. But it's not. They don't want to hurt us. They just don't want to be alone. The message ended with a strange sound. Not a hum. Not static. Something like breathing, but not hers. Not human. At the next school board meeting, a motion was passed to officially retire the numbers once worn by the 7 students on their jerseys, uniforms, and badges. Eli, Mira, Jordan, Tess, Reed, Hannah, Bo. 7 names, 7 numbers, now burned into plaques, hung at the center of the gym, where no one speaks during morning roll call, where no one forgets who's still missing, even if they're no longer expected to return. The wind in Black Hollow changed after that. Not stronger, not louder, but aware. That's what the locals said. The few who dared walk the edge of the woods since the last discovery. The Ranger's journal, the voicemail, the word echo scribbled on every page W. Tuller could still touch. It was no longer just about loss. Now, it was about something waiting. In December of 2023, 9 months after the farmer uncovered the tin box, a volunteer cleanup crew was clearing brush near the southern entrance of what used to be Section 9G, now fenced and marked as private land under federal designation. A woman named Clarice Doyle, 58 years old, found something buried beneath a tangle of vines. It was a coat, child-sized, blue, torn at the sleeve, and inside the pocket, a library card. Name, Reed McCarthy. Checked out, a field guide consolations. Due date, March 19th, 2013, the day after he vanished. The pocket also held something else. A small page, folded twice. A sticky note, yellowed with age, scribbled in blocky handwriting. They don't like light. The real kind. Fire's okay. The rest, it hurts them. The words were faint, as if written by a shaking hand. Or in the dark. Below it, one more line. Tell Mira I'm sorry. Reed's older brother, Gavin, now in his late 20s, confirmed the handwriting. He said Reed had a habit, never using lowercase I when writing fast. That detail matched perfectly. Authorities opened a new area of investigation, the constellations, because in that field guide, the one listed on the card, a section had been bookmarked, the Pleiades cluster, also called the Seven Sisters, a group of stars bound together, fated to drift forever. The note had no explanation, no diagram, no connection, but that section was circled and underlined in pen. They watch in groups of 3, but they follow in 7s. No one knew what it meant. Not yet. Then came the sound tape. A former radio technician named Don Calvert stepped forward with something he claimed to have recorded in 2013. He was scanning emergency bands for forest fires. And at exactly 3:11 a.m. on March 18th, the night the 7 disappeared, his receiver caught a strange frequency. Not voice, not static, but a pattern. 3 tones. Uneven, mechanical, like someone tapping metal underwater. He archived it, labeled it Forest Anomaly, and never thought about it again until he heard Tess Martin's voicemail on the news. The background sound matched exactly. Frequency, tone, duration, matched. Experts were brought in. Sound engineers, acoustic analysts. Their verdict? Not natural, not random, something designed. A form of signaling, but not human. One specialist, anonymous in the report, wrote, "It's a form of calling, a beacon, something waiting for a reply." Then something even more chilling emerged. Mr. Hale's son, the teacher who disappeared, submitted a photo to investigators, one he found in an old shoebox, undated, unlabeled, but clearly taken at Camp Wild Pines, the same location the students vanished. In the photo, a group of teens sitting around a fire, laughing, eating, but just beyond the tree line, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure, lanky, out of proportion, watching, its face blurred, not by motion, but by light, like it reflected nothing, like it refused to be seen. Digital analysts tried to enhance the image, but every attempt failed. The figure's face remained blank, every pixel empty, not corrupted, just absent, as if it was never meant to be captured. Angela Martin was shown the image. She didn't flinch. She said only, that's why they never looked back. Because it wasn't behind them. It was already with them. By January 2024, Black Hollow was officially declared a restricted area. No entry without clearance. No hiking. No camping. The school erected a new memorial. 7 stars carved into the concrete wall of the auditorium. No names, just shapes, 7 points. At night, they glow softly, powered by solar light, and each one flickers, not in rhythm, not like a light dying, but like a pulse, almost like it's blinking, waiting. A former classmate, Jenna Reese, shared an email she received from Tess 2 days before the trip. Most of it was normal, jokes about sleeping bags, worries about spiders. But at the end, Tess wrote something strange. Jordan says there's a game kids used to play out there, like hide and seek, but the kind where someone always loses. He says you hear a hum, and if you follow it, you disappear. I told him he was dumb, but I kinda want to try. The last line chilled Jenna when she reread it. If I don't come back, tell my mom I'm probably still hiding. Another tip came in, this one from a delivery driver named Hugo Ortiz. He said that in late 2014, a year after the disappearance, he saw something strange at a rest stop outside the woods. A girl, blonde, barefoot, wearing an oversized jacket. She stared at the vending machine, didn't move. He offered to help. She didn't respond. Then she looked up at him and said, "Do you know what time it is?" "Not here." "There." He blinked, confused. She was gone. The only thing left behind, a feather, black, bent at the tip. Authorities logged it, filed it, but the footage from that rest stop camera, like all the others, was blank, not corrupted, just never recorded, as if someone had paused a memory, or never allowed it in the first place. The last item found in Part 5 was delivered anonymously to the sheriff's office in a brown envelope. No fingerprints. Inside, a Polaroid. 7 children, sitting on a hillside at dusk. None of them are smiling. Their eyes look past the camera, at something else, something unseen, and written in the white space beneath in faint pencil. They let us write this, but only once. Don't try to find us. It's not a place you come back from. There are places where silence lives deeper than sound. Black Hollow is one of them. After the Polaroid arrived, things slowed down. No new tips, no sightings, no new boxes buried in moss. Just a stillness, as if the forest had said everything it was willing to say. But investigators, the ones who hadn't been pulled off or silenced, continued digging through what little evidence remained. One of them, a data analyst named Kelly Rhodes, reviewed every recorded GPS ping from phones and radios in the area during the original search in 2013. She found something no one had noticed. On March 18th, 2013, at exactly 3:27 a.m., 7 GPS units briefly reactivated, each sending a single burst of location data before going dark again. Not from the ranger station, not from the search grid, but from the center of Section 9G, the exact coordinates where the circle of stones would later be found. 7 signals, 7 points, and all of them aligned in a circle, like markers, like they had stood there, together, just for a moment, then gone again. Rhodes called it a glitch, but she printed the map anyway. And when laid over the original layout of Camp Wild Pines, the circle sat directly over the trail named Echo Ridge, a trail long since collapsed, a trail where no animals had ever crossed since 2013. That night, Angela Martin sat on her porch and opened Tessa's final sketchbook. The last page was blank, but under the right light, using heat, not ink, a shape appeared, drawn faintly. Hidden, it was a spiral, jagged, sharp, 7 loops, each ending with a dot. At the center, a symbol she couldn't recognize. But when she traced it with her finger, she whispered, "It's the same shape as the clearing." She knew. Others began coming forward, not with sightings, but with dreams. Former classmates, old teachers, search volunteers. They described similar things. The humming sound, the feeling of being watched from beneath the ground, and a voice, not loud, but present, whispering. They made the choice. One boy, now grown, said he woke up standing outside, barefoot in the grass, and didn't remember how he got there. In his hand, a feather, not a dream, not imagined. He took a photo. Same color, same bend, same pattern. In March 2024, the sheriff's office received a small package. No label, no return address. Inside, a cassette tape. On it, a recording of a girl reciting the names of the 7, one by one, softly, calmly, and then she says, "We're still learning how to stay. But some things don't come back whole." The voice matched Tess Martin, but the audio had no digital signature, no metadata. It had been recorded on analog, a cassette made sometime in the 90s, which shouldn't be possible. Tess was born in 1997, but the tape was real. Angela played again, and again. Each time, She wept less, not because it hurt less, but because the voice had changed. Not desperate, not trapped, just distant, like it had accepted something she never could. The government made one final move. They erased the site. No signs, no fences. They didn't mark it restricted. They simply let the woods take it back. One by one, the stones were moved. One by one, the coordinates were wiped from public databases. The logs went missing. The map overlays disappeared. And Section 9G no longer existed on paper. But some things can't be erased. Not really. One final clue surfaced. It came from a child, a girl, just 9 years old, hiking with her father near the old ranger trail. She wandered a little too far. And when she returned, she was shaking. In her hand, a drawing. 7 stick figures, each with a number on its chest. And 3 tall ones beside them. No faces, just lines. She didn't speak for hours. When she finally did, she said they were singing, but not with mouths. Her father asked who. She said, the ones beneath. Angela Martin never got her daughter back. No remains. No real goodbye. Just traces. Echoes. Warnings whispered through trees that now hum when the wind is still. But on the 10th anniversary, she left something in the woods. A message, not to the world, but to them. She carved it into the tree nearest the collapsed shack. Only 3 lines. No name. No plea. Just, we remember. We believe you. We're still listening. And in the weeks that followed, people said the forest changed again. The birds returned. The fog lifted. The air grew lighter. As if 7 voices had been heard. As if they'd stopped trying to warn, and finally been understood.